In July 2019, I was contacted by John Gambell, Yale's university printer. John said he wanted to discuss with me the creation of a new processional scepter for the recently created Faculty of Arts and Sciences and their new dean, Tamar Gendler. And why is this a Rosetta Stone? The original Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799 in Egypt by a French officer during the Napoleonic invasion. The Rosetta Stone is a fragment that holds the first ancient bilingual text recovered in modern times. That is, a bunch of hints, like the best of education, that through discipline unlocks the vast reservoirs of recorded human knowledge. I sent them images of objects I had made, among them this image of a tiered container made from sheets and rods of pewter and brass. Tamar selected us for the project and asked us to come visit because, well, it was complicated. For starters, the Faculty of Arts and Sciences has 50 departments embracing the arts, humanities, social sciences, biological and physical sciences, engineering, and applied science. The imagery on the scepter needed to embody them all. Tamar wanted the scepter to be seen at a distance as having gravitas and representing timeless stability. But up close, with a twinkle in her eye, she said to have at it, with humor, irreverence, and wild curiosity. And an idea she had for the flavor of the mischievousness might start with her enjoyment of calamity ware. "You're really giving me this?" I said to myself. Continuing, Dean Gendler and her collaborators riffed during our first meetings on elements on the campus itself and in university writings. Among the most powerful symbol in Yale's culture is the mystical Hebrew Urim V'Tumim. Now, as a member of the tribe that still uses this ancient language and that prizes skepticism over belief, this is intensely entertaining because about the Urim and the Tumim, it turns out nobody knows much of anything concerning what the Torah said were hidden within the priestly breastplate of Moses' brother Aaron. According to the Wikipedia page, they are connected with kleromancy, suspected to refer to a set of two objects used by the high priest to answer a question or reveal the will of God. Kleromancy involves drawing lots, or maybe shooting craps. So while African slaves were riffing the foundations of American jazz, Ezra Stiles and his forebears were riffing on Urim V'Tumim, with the idea that it meant light and truth, in Latin, lux et veritas. Myth has it that Ezra Stiles first placed the Urim V'Tumim on the Yale book, but according to the Wikipedia entry, the Hebrew on the Yale seal appears on Stiles' own master's degree diploma from Yale in 1749, decades before he became president of Yale University. What a beautiful symbol for excellence in education, a mystery that provokes curiosity and searching with no absolute answer. Other symbols at Yale were chosen, one being the stained glass Zeppelin in Sheffield Sterling Strathcona Hall. Another, the ubiquitous elm trees across the campus. And the Ankylosaurus from Rudolph Zallinger's fresco in the Peabody Museum. And stones from the Quinnipiac River bank to recognize the indigenous people whose land became Yale's. And these symbols from the Faculty of Arts and Sciences coat of arms, the cross, the ermine, and the mythical Yale beast. As the project evolved, I decided that the scepter should be made with technologies used by the ancients through today's cutting edge. Now here we enter the realm of art's role in the stories we tell ourselves. And I recalled a 1938 book by the Dutch historian Johan Huizinga, titled Homo Ludens, or Man the Player, in which Johan says, in giving expression to life, man creates a second poetic world alongside the world of nature. And I read about Dean Gendler's thinking through sections of her book, Intuition, Imagination, and Philosophical Methodology. So, simultaneously, seen from a distance, here are a series of overall drawings that were experiments that eventually re-evolved to a final drawing that I'll show you in a minute. And up on the upper left, you can see this is kind of a 1950s spaceship flying saucer with the hierarchy of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, together with 50 delineated little lines underneath for the departments. And then that developed into this with a large, more funnel shape on the bottom, and then to a round one, and then a skinny round one, and then a fat round one. And for a taste of what's to come, the dean asked me to put in the points of a jester's cap. And then I came up with the final drawing from which you will see we proceeded. Up close, here are a bunch of the elements that I worked on combining into the imagery. Here's the Yale book with Urim Vatumim, and here's the shield. I messed around with this and did all kinds of things with the crosses and the ermines and the Yale mythical beast. I didn't finally use this in the end, but I used ideas from it in some other parts. And then, of course, there's the beloved ankylosaurus that everybody seems to have special affection for. This is a cuneiform symbol for the earth. And to put that together in contemporary terms, I combined it with the Unicode number for that. Every symbol, every mark that is digitized that we see in our world has a number connected to it. So this is the number for the cuneiform earth. And here, this triangle is also the alchemical symbol for fire, being light. So I put that in. And then here's my own incandescent bulb, now history in the world. And here's a quick drawing of the incandescent bulb with emet, the Hebrew word for truth. And then this is an LED unit. It's the little tiny bulblet that you see or that exists in almost all of the LED lights that we use today. And here's the drawing of the hierarchy, a layout of the hierarchy from the Yale website. And over here, I first experimented with figuring out numbers, the numbers of units on each level as a way of experimenting with it. And then I took it and using the more graphic way of thinking about calamity ware, I made a drawing using that. I didn't like it very much, but here it is, part of the process. And then I took these hierarchies and I started to make them into something that would be related to the mass of the final scepter. Here is a drawing of mine of the elm tree leaves that were to get put in and finally did. And here's one more iteration of the jester's point that's pretty close to what I finally used at the bottom in the end result. Here's a symbol that is on the internet for quantum mechanics, a symbol for a microchip. And here is psi, the Greek letter for quantum mechanics. When it came to music, I went and dug around and came up via Wikipedia with an ancient Chinese symbol for music. And then there's my drawing that I took from the mythical Yale beast and made my own. Then not put into the final, but I felt it should be just a reminder of where we are. A small drawing of the coronavirus. Now, I took those and I arranged them on 2 rings with a variety of those things I just showed you, those elements. And you can see here's the book and the elm, the words Urim Vatumim written out in Hebrew. The Zeppelin is this lyric symbol, Chinese kung fu opera gong chi notation. It's the ankylosaurus, the earth with its Unicode and another elm tree. This is going to get wrapped around in a circle, so the book will be bound by the elm leaves on each side. And then in the smaller ring, my drawing of the light bulb, the Latin for truth, and the other elements that I showed you right here is Emet and Hebrew. Now, adding to my use of cutting-edge technologies, these images were originally pixelated images. That is, up really close, they look like a checkerboard of the minuscule black and white squares that make up your computer screen. These were made into vector graphics, that is, mathematically generated curves, by Nicole B. in Australia overnight via the internet, so they could be laser cut by LNA laser technology in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So back to what I was talking about before with the form and how it related to the hierarchy. I decided to metaphorically integrate it as steps in the middle elements of the head and the tailstock. Above the widest ring, the top of the Faculty Arts and Sciences hierarchy, and below the 50 departments, as a base 5 series of 10 steps in the lower Stirling bowl. Next, the dean's rings along the staff and the donor's ring at the bottom. I haven't put that in this drawing yet. Terminating as a stepped bezel for a silver spheroid counterbalance, because don't forget we're dealing with a solid object that has to be carried, and if you didn't have something to offset the weight of this, it would all flop over. So there's a little sketch about it. Here's another one of my sketches about the Yale beast. I made a bunch of them, as you'll see in the future. I moved from drawings into the third dimension by making a half-scale model made of wood and plaster and plastic and tape. Here are the dean's rings, and here's the counterbalance at the bottom down here. And again, I still haven't got in yet the donor's band. All right, now I'm going to show you how I built the final prototype. So these are all a bunch of parts that I cut out of a PVC board that are all going to go around that thick dowel at the bottom of the image. Here they're all stuck together. I laminated them all with glue and matching them to, you can see this drawing that on my computer in the back. So I've matched them to that and they can match. And then I started cutting them off on my right. And I couldn't help showing you this, the results of all that, with all the cuttings in the end result. And here's the final product. I'm just starting to draw the jester's points at the bottom. And there we go. Here's a part of the staff that I used. I disassembled it and assembled it with a hidden threaded rod so I can control part of the process. Here it is, the setup ready for drilling the holes for putting the dean's rings on the staff. And there's a final of the head, and you can see these are pieces of paper that I printed out on my printer, and with all the symbols we talked about. Here's the counterbalance at the bottom with yet another drawing of the Yale beast wrapped around a spherical form. So in the end, here is the prototype profile drawing of what we're going to use to actually produce the object. Every one of these spaces is almost correct. All the profiles are corrected. Everything is just what I wanted it to be. And here is the donor's band here. Now, as you'll see, this is pretty close, but what's going to happen is I'm going to tweak them as we move along in the process. So one of the first parts of showing you how this is made is Provost Scott Strobel's steps in making the staff. Now, Scott has the wonderful gift of being able to collect pieces of wood from the Yale campus, from the trees, drying them and curing them beautifully and making them into bowls that I understand they give out as awards for Yale. So there's the first rough cut. And here's the beginning of the final cut. This is sped up, by the way. Nobody works this fast. You'd hurt yourself. And here's the final piece. Just fresh on the lathe, but done. And then here are all Scott's parts laid down next to my prototype. And they're all just perfect. Now, the next step of this is to go to have the spinning chucks put together. I'm at BAK Precision, and we're looking at the drawings that are going to be fed into the CAD/CAM system and make our chucks. There's this
piece. There's the piece right there.
Oh, there we go. So that's a profile.
That's right. Yep. So now once I was happy with this, then I dimensioned the drawings.
Here, Chris is doing some final finishing on this piece.
Yeah. You can cut it. It just doesn't like to be filed.
There we go.
You're gonna have to hit it with some 600 paper and don't shine.
Good. This is great. Okay, we're moving right along here. See that?
Well, Goosey's doing the finished cut.
Okay.
I was changing too.
This is the finished cut you said?
Yeah, see how it's getting like a little darker in color?
Yep.
And it's taking just a very light cut to give you a better finish.
I see. Is that has a slight radius, that tool?
Yeah, it's got about 15,000 radius.
I see. That material is called phenolic, and it's made in, just like I did with my PVC boards, it's made out of like 1-inch thick pieces of phenolic, and they're bound to one another by old classical biblical linen, worked into the block and then laminated together, and here they are using that ancient stuff in this wonderful new machine. Then we took those chucks to make the sheet metal form. Down this hole here, and now we're going to turn into Bill's high profile places. This is not one of them. Here we are inside these places that look like nothing outside, but here's what's inside. There's Bill over here in the corner doing spinning. Right there. It's a little tiny bit high down here, so Bill's going to take some off. Okay, there we go. This is the beginning. See that? We're going to trim it off.
Trim the edge up a little.
Yep.
We're going to nail it.
Okay. It doesn't overheat one place over another. Here we go. You can see it now. They're too big. Okay, here's Don, and here's the pieces, okay? Oh, wow. There we go. That one's got the recesses underneath it. And this has the return on it, one side and then the other. Great. So there we are. There's the set of rings. And then we're going to the oldest of these technologies, which is hand engraving. Here's one of the spin and finish pieces, just about ready to go, and the only thing left to do on that is the engraving and the finishing of the engraving. I thought you might like to see, this is one of my own gravers, and that's my finger, and this is basically the activity that an engraver uses. He uses varieties of those little sharp-pointed steel tools to cut into the surface of a piece of metal.
This is white lacquer with India ink used to create the designs. What's interesting about these three tools is the amount of lines that they create. This one creates 1 line, this one creates 6 lines, and this one creates 12 lines. There we go. It's a long process, but when it's quiet in here, it's very enjoyable actually. It becomes quite contemplative, and I enjoy it a lot.
And that's the final cut object with the engravings. And then I took them, and they're all raw polished metal when he first does them, and I darken them with a chemical that gives you the black in the deep areas, so it reads better. And now we're going to do the laser cutting. And then here we are finally taking it back to Don Nguyen, who is now connecting those bands, wrapping them around those rings, and fastening the whole piece together. You can see here, there's a cutter up here. You see that? That's a cutter. That's a saw. Okay, very fine saw that cut this kerf. A kerf is this the hole made with a cutter, with a saw. So that's a kerf. And he's cut that very precisely so that it matches all around. He's put the whole things together with epoxy. And after it's done, here's the small ring. And there you can see how precise that joint is. Look right there. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. That's what's so wonderful about some of these people, is they know how to do this. And they're the final pieces. Here's the little bottom plate. Here's this spacer that I made for it. And then I think we're going to put some of these in here. Not big ones. Not big ones. Let's see. Here we go. Let's put a few of these in here. Let's put them all in there. There we go. Okay. I'll put the top with the engraving on it in place, and the acorn nut. Here's that piece. Here's the ring. There we go. Here's the reducer. Here's the second ring. And then, before we put the top on, we're going to put in the pebbles from the Quinnipiac River. We don't know how many of these have to go in here, but we're just gonna put a few in. Let's see what it takes. Okay, we're going to put the top on the jar. And then we're going to put the cap nut on top. Just fasten it down a little bit. And there we have the mace.